When I was about 15, I worked as a camp counselor at a Christian wilderness camp for middle and elementary schoolers. I'm not Christian, and never have been. What I am is a gay trans man, at the time a deeply closeted one. I did not sign up for that job with the knowledge that it was a Christian camp. I only discovered it about halfway through counselor training when everyone around me started praying to Jesus. I tend to be a kind of go-with-the-flow guy, though, so I was like, fuck it. What up, Jesus? Nice to meet you. Hey, are you really watching me all the time? Absolutely, please stop doing that. You and Santa both need to learn some boundaries. About 2 days into the job, I realized that I do not do well with kids. It's not their fault, and I respect their existence, but their consistent volume level makes me feel insane. The stress built and built. One day, I was walking across camp when a sort of numbness washed over me. It came on with a feeling like highway hypnosis. I made my way into the bathroom of a random unused building. Once there, I came to my senses for a split second and was baffled by my surroundings. With a completely empty bladder, I stood in the stall facing the dirty camp toilet like a sim waiting for commands. There was no time to contemplate my actions, though, because the next moment my mind went blank. I knew that I was going to die. I couldn't feel my body. I couldn't form coherent thoughts or grasp any concept of emotion. My breath came in shorter and shorter gasps. It felt like being strangled from the inside out, like I was suffocating. In reality, I was hyperventilating. I lost the ability to stand. The grimy tile floor rushed up to give me a big wet kiss, but I wasn't cognizant enough to be grossed out. At that moment, I was not a teenage girl. I was a wild animal, and I was prey. I wormed around on the floor for a while until I eventually army crawled out of the stall like something out of a nasty horror flick. I'm pretty sure that's when the screaming started. True screams are a subconscious reflex, like the yelp that pops out when being startled. Only difference was, this time it just kept going. I screamed until my voice cut out, then crawled out of the bathroom into the hall to seek help. I had regained enough logic by then to do that. I also had enough logic to understand that I was not dying, and was not in danger of dying. I was just having a panic attack. When I went home from camp, I learned about panic attacks from my therapist at the time. She was the first in a future procession of 7. Nice lady. She was a CBT therapist, which does not stand for cock and ball torture. It stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is therapy, but with worksheets and a whiteboard. Thus, my ballless self was handed a very reassuring printout to explain my symptoms. She told me that the type of anxiety I have is prone to build up on top of itself until it surpasses a certain chemical boundary in my brain that makes my body perceive the stressor as life-threatening. During a life-threatening event, she said, the body experiences a rush of adrenaline and reverts back to its most basic survival instincts. What she failed to mention, however, is that my subconscious sees itself as some sort of herd species prey type creature. It's like a horse. In times of ultimate peril, brain horse would take over. The horse's action plan came in 2 stages. First, it would spook and bolt to perceived isolation. Then, it would seek out the herd for protection. Flee people, seek people. That was my horsus operandi. The following year in high school, I found myself in the bathroom, zoning out at my reflection in the mirror. My heartbeat was thundering up into my throat, but my mind was blank, devoid of everything other than a single ancient instinct. Seek the herd. I galloped to my art teacher's office, but she didn't know what to do. She called in the principal. He also didn't know what to do. He called in the dance teacher? She was also shockingly unsure on what to do. She called in a member of the school admin. This random lady was vaguely practiced in homeopathic medicine. She thought she knew what to do. Following her instruction, I was then hoisted into a standing position by two teachers, one on either side of me. I didn't protest. At that point, I would blindly agree with whatever they did. Of course I would. They're my herd. According to them, apparently, the treatment for a panic attack was fresh air. Also, I was repeatedly told to breathe while hyperventilating. Following their treatment, I was frog marched in laps around the circumference of the entire school campus. My limp body dragged along by a parade of faculty, past all the other students repeatedly. At the time of the attack, I felt no real emotion, but the sticky sensation of the eyes on me at school haunted me for a long time afterwards. I felt watched, always. I felt that way even after I graduated. In college, I couldn't quite figure out how to keep stuffing myself into the closet anymore, and that stress was more than enough to trip the horsification switch. I set out to go to the dining hall one day, but the horse took the reins. As was routine, after reaching isolation, I had a moment of clarity to take in my surroundings. This time, I found myself in a concerningly medieval basement. Yes, my stables, the horse said. I'm calling health services, my roommate said over the phone. After a bit, I was carried up the spiral staircase by the school's pre-med student interns. In the center of an empty Gothic church, I was held down by paramedics as I thrashed in and out of consciousness directly down the aisle from an ornate golden altar dais where a marble statue of Jesus dying on the cross looked down on me from on high. Hey, Jesus. Again, not the time to be watching me. Give a guy some privacy. Fuck! I mean, girl! Give a girl some privacy! God! The school paramedics had never seen a panic attack with the same symptoms I have, because I am special and unique in everything I do. They very helpfully decided to call a real ambulance. Soon, I had the pleasure of a herd of paramedics surrounding me, cushioning the back of my head and making awkward small talk over my semi-conscious body. 2 school health interns, 2 ambulance paramedics, 1 roommate, and Jesus. Do you want to go to the hospital? A paramedic asked me multiple times in a tone that was not calming. Is what I replied. They took me to the hospital. I don't remember the ambulance ride, but I do remember coming back to my senses approximately 2 minutes after getting there. They had stuck me on a stretcher in a random hallway, which was completely fair, given that there wasn't actually anything wrong with me. I re-entered reality from horse state as a nurse asked me if I wanted some drugs. I thanked her, but declined them, got up and left, and dropped out of college. A year later, I went right back. Walking around campus, I often passed by a familiar sight. Hey, there was the church I freaked out in. I returned to that basement and rolled joints in there. Then I dropped out of college again. That was about 5 years ago. Since then, I transitioned. Yay! And I learned from my 7th therapist that drowning myself, semi-drowning myself, in a bowl of ice water actually works really well to halt an oncoming panic attack. Now I'm finally pursuing my lifelong dream of going to college for the 3rd time. It's a lot easier now with 0.25 milliliters of testosterone shot into my ass once a week. These days, I look back on those memories of my panic attacks pretty fondly. Not because I enjoy panic attacks, of course. It's just that as I looked at the memories from a further and healthier perspective, I came to a realization. Being held down by paramedics in an empty Gothic church from the 1800s is a pretty interesting experience. Being shame paraded in circles around your high school is actually fucking insane. And part of a list of things that eventually helped me realize that I had low-key been in a cult. At that summer camp that I used to work at, I learned that my panic attack had started a rumor that the building I freaked out in was haunted. I like to think that in the camp lore, I'll live on as a ghost story told around the campfire. Back then, I was nothing but embarrassed and empty inside. At the end of the day, I was so full of nothingness that a feral horse spirit would randomly possess me, as if to say, "Fine, I'll be you if you won't. We're still alive, motherfucker. Let's keep it that way." And also probably, "Nay! Give me sugar cubes, bitch!" The horse's sentiments are true, though. I am still alive, and sugar cubes are delicious.
Cheers, Joe!